Okay, let's begin. I am Lanice Antoine Shelley, and I'll be your host through constructive, healing-based conversations designed to illuminate the adoptee, parents, and the adoption curious. We center the topics around community, mentorship, leadership, and healing, so you get a multi-dimensional view that is ultimately empowering. These are the voices who could not speak when they were young. Hey y'all, if you've seen me on Instagram, I'm in my summer glow phase and I am unapologetic about it. My hair is luscious. Fun fact, I didn't start properly treating and doing my own hair until I was a grown adult because like many Black adoptees, no one showed me how to do my own hair. And because I love you all so much, I'm going to share with you my hair secret. I'm always on the lookout for things you'd love and things that will enhance your well-being inside and out. We Unique Cosmetics sent me their Moisture Lock pomade and scalp and hair therapy oil from their Metamorphosis line, and it's so decadent, light, and nourishing, fam. This has become a hair routine staple. It has a soft lemongrass scent that people comment on when I walk by or when they're doing my hair because now I have boho locks. They also sent me a 15% discount link for you to try their products and hair tutorial service. And Unique Cosmetics is Black owned and operated by a mother and daughter duo dedicated to helping the adoptee community. Check out the link in the show notes. And this is for all ages, fam. So tell your friends. So come on, embark on a hair-loving journey with We Unique World. From interactive workshops to premium products, they're all about empowering you to embrace your unique hair journey. Because remember, all hair is good hair, especially when it's healthy. Hello, welcome back. How was your week? How is your heart? This week was incredibly productive for me. I put myself on a strict schedule that I only wavered from sometimes. I'll do a solo episode on some things that I do to enhance my daily productivity. For now, let's talk about healing modalities. Each year, a new gadget or technique surfaces, some as ancient as meditation and yoga, while others newer like emotional coaching and juice fasts. I'm game to try most and have already checked off quite a few. You can always tell when a person has ventured deeper into the lower levels of their trauma because they're more compassionate, gracious, and empathic. My guest today is just that. Emma Stevens is able to give grace to her biological family and gentility to herself as the fantasy of her reunification came to a sobering halt. We discuss the imperative of embracing all of our parts, the bad, gruesome, and seemingly unlovable parts, and inviting them into the healing process, and how no matter what, all our parts are welcome. This conversation was so delightful. Emma dropped so many quotable gems like my holy mystery when referring to herself. We start with her book, The Gathering Place, an adoptee story, and how it grew out of her connection to nature. We unpack the uses of the healing modality EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing. Emma also touches on her tumultuous childhood with her adoptive parents, the gift of learning how to take up space, benefits of tapping as another tool of healing, how she chose life after years of alcoholism, and how deconstructing belief systems led to writing her book, and thereby teaching her how to help others get unstuck. And finally, she breaks down how to self-publish a book step by step. I love how generous and transparent Emma is about her writing process. If you are a writer, please get out a pen and paper and take some notes because she imparts strong actionables that will help set you on your course. Emma ends up asking me a question that honestly breaks me open. She saw right through me, folks. When re-listening to this episode, it took my breath away for the second time. This is a real good one. Let's go. How's your day?
Pretty good so far. It's still early in the morning, but looking forward to the day.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. I hope it's beautiful where you're at. How's the weather?
It gets really hot where I am,
Yeah.
very high temperatures. So we do like our air conditioning.
Well, thanks so much for reaching out and initiating this conversation because once I looked into the materials that you gave me, I was really excited about your work, and I think the viewers, the listeners, will be enticed as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about your work?
Well, I would say that I'm trying to get more involved in the adoptee community as I see that it really is out there, and that just
Mhm.
started happening for me about 6 years ago. I think a lot of adoptees think that we're the only ones when we're growing up, that we have these weird feelings and there's no one else that could relate. But then when we reach out and, thanks to social media, we're able to find our community. And so through that, I just started trying to get involved and tried to research and educate myself. And then I've always wanted to write a book about the whole thing. And everything kind of converged to where I've really been writing the book all my life. But all of a sudden, it just all came pouring out. And I self published through Amazon and then did an audio recording on Audible. And it was just the best thing I ever did. I'm so happy with it.
You're so right with like the isolation of adoptees because I grew up thinking that I was the only one that felt the way that I did. And I had an adopted sister, but she and
Yeah.
I had a vastly different experience. And I love that you said that have been writing this book your whole life. And I don't know if you read Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. But there's one of my favorite quotes is God drew a circle in the sand right where you stand. You were never not coming here.
Mm.
And that continues to resonate with me. And so let's talk about the journey to writing this book and what that created in your life. Your book title is.
The Gathering Place, an adoptee story.
And how did you come by that title?
I think it first started with an image that I found, a photograph, and I guess, a very visual person, and I love nature. It makes me feel really connected. And so I found this big old oak tree photograph with a rope and wood seated swing hanging from the branch. And all you see is this lovely vista of the green grass, and you can just kind of see forever. And at that same time, I started a modality in counseling that's called EMDR.
Mm,
It's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. And
mm,
one of the things that your counselor will tell you is think of a safe place. And so I'm like, I just saw the visual. I know where I want to be. And it was under that oak tree with the swing hanging. And so then I thought, I don't know, the title just came to me of how we're all going to gather around this tree at the gathering place. And who I gather is all my parts throughout my life of young me, baby me, uh, you know, teenager me, and we all just have conversations. And then I weave my life story through that whole thing. And I think it all came together and hopefully it made sense.
it makes beautiful sense. I love that image of the oak tree and us gathering because, harkening back to our first few comments about isolation and how important it is to have that feeling of belonging and community, and
Yeah.
creating that community as adults, and finding a way to share the learnings that we've accumulated throughout our search.
Mhm.
So, what were the essential steps that you took to write this book? Because I know that there are a lot of adoptees out there that want to write, and they
Mhm.
come to me and ask me, "So, how do you write a book?" And I'm like, "I've never written a book." So, what were those steps, and how did you manage that Herculean feat of writing a book, writing about your particular story?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot. I have a good friend here in my hometown, and I think you know her, Lorraine Gerald. She's the adopted chameleon.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And she also wants to write her book and asks me all the time, how'd you do it? Um, and, I reach inside myself trying to find the ultimate thing to say. But all I can tell you is that when I was young, I had a very tumultuous childhood with my adoptive parents. And the only way I learned to have a conversation with them was to go in my room and write down my feelings. And so I think at an early age, I got very in touch with it, my expression, to put it into words. And it just developed over time of where I feel like I had a knack in expressive writing. And then when it came time to, I just had this all inside me of needing to express it and to find my voice and to go ahead and take up space. All my life, it's been like, I'm a burden, taking up too much space. I'm sorry for, taking up too much of your time. And it just all came pouring out in this book because of a lot of things that converged at the same time of the EMDR therapy. I've done a whole lot of work on myself. I have, just researching and trying to be self-reflective and self-awareness, and all of that just all came together. And when I put it through the lens of that EMDR, which is basically meditation, really is what it is, and it all came pouring out. And that's the best I can say.
Yeah. Well, it's so important to notate the modalities that are working, the healing modalities that you find. And I've heard of EMDR before, and it's becoming more and more mainstream and popular. And I'm actually quite interested in it, as well as tapping. A lot of people talk about tapping and EMDR in the same sentence. Have you done that as well?
I have. Yeah, that's really beneficial, where it really is just to stimulate your right brain and left brain. And ultimately, the objective is to integrate both. Like maybe you have, I always use the bad baby example of where a lot of us in utero felt like we were a bad baby because we were probably unwanted even in utero. The birth mom probably already was saying, I'm going to relinquish. And so that's an erroneous belief for a child to think that they were a bad baby. There's no bad babies. I know there aren't. And so I have a choice now. Do I want to continue to believe that implicit memory of I'm a bad baby based on nothingness? Or do I want to change that story now that I have, my thinking, my logical thinking, and I can change those pathways to get out of a broken story and step into a new one.
Wow. And that's so powerful that you even see the option of stepping into a new one. Because a lot of people that I've run across don't even see the possibility of a new existence. And so it takes, at least from my point of view, it takes so many different modalities, so many different exercises that open up a new channel of possibilities for me. So that's wonderful that you found that, and that has helped you in the accumulation of this story that manifested into the gathering place.
Yeah. I think you have to remain aware. You have to have a willingness to be willing to remain aware and be very intentional about, you see something you think is totally unrelated, but you think, no, that has a purpose, that has something connection. And so I just gathered all those ideas together and let all of it form together, everything that I've learned. And let me just say, I did have to have that fork in the road of something that was so dramatic that brought me to my knees before I was able to be aware and to have the willingness to be willing. I was an alcoholic. And so that brought me to my knees of, I'm either going to continue on this path and go towards death and just be in denial of my life and myself, my true self versus my false self, or I'm going to choose life. And unfortunately, I got involved in AA, doing the 12-step program. But what was more beneficial for me personally was a group called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. They call it ACOA. And it's really about emotional sobriety and emotional maturity or intelligence, whatever you want to call it. And so I started deconstructing and dismantling everything I ever thought I knew to be true, and questioned everything to be able to find my true self. And if I hadn't done all that process, the book never would have happened.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's been a journey, and it's an exciting one.
It's exciting and it's courageous. I just want to acknowledge just your vulnerability in telling me about the hardships of your childhood and your alcoholism. So I just want to acknowledge just the courage and sharing that with us, because it adds to the potency of your story, of your book. It sounds like you have so much richness to contribute, and you're willing to contribute that. And so thank you so much for that.
That's my absolute pleasure, because that's the 12th step, is when you get to the part where you give back to others what was so freely given to you. And that's the point of spiritual awakening, because you experience the joy and the magic of dismantling everything and getting to the through it. You know, I'm not saying I am through it all, but I'm making progress. And that's where I choose to be now, instead of remaining stuck. And I was stuck for a long time. And I want to help others get unstuck.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I am in the place of wanting to help others get unstuck as well. And it takes a lot. Like, we continue, as you said, it's a journey, and we continue the journey of healing. It never stops, unfortunately. And I said in previous episodes that I feel that adoptees start at a deficit when it comes to this sort of work, because we have so much catching up to do. And so we are in a different place in our journey than other people, generally speaking. That's just my observation.
Absolutely agree with that. And I get a lot of that pushback where I hear, well, now, that's true for all of us. That's just human nature. But they have no reference point to know on the spectrum that we started off the spectrum over here, and that neurologically our brains formed in a different way, because of the primal wound. And you can't deny that. We all experience that to some range or another, or admit it to some extent or another. But it's true. We started at a deficit. I love that phrase that you just said.
Yeah. So when writing this book, did you self-publish, or did you find a literary agent? What were those steps?
I self-published because I was too impatient to do anything else. And I just put one foot in front of the other. I got an editor who was amazing. And I'm just going to say her name, Diane Shiflett. She lives in Arizona. And she actually just helped publish Flourish. I don't know if you've seen that beautiful cover with the artwork. And it's a collaboration of a lot of adoptees that have written. Anne Heffron was, I think, in charge of collecting it all. And anyway, Diane was the editor of that beautiful book. And she is also an adoptee herself. So she had the heart. I tell you what, I was so afraid when I began, thinking that, this is so vulnerable. I have a lot of raw stuff in the book. And I just felt like I had this really compassionate person inside my story with me, as she just gently guided me with, you may want to think about adding a little more here, or let's reconstruct this sentence. She was fabulous. So that would get yourself a really good editor. And there's a formatter that you can get through Amazon, and they don't really cost a lot at all. And they just help you with the consistency or the continuity of your book, of the way it looks on a page. Do you want a chapter heading? Do you want the page number? Anyway, that's real important. And then for Audible, I had a really nice studio production manager that I had worked with before on some vocals that I'd done with him. I already had a relationship with him. So I knew he was a great guy. And it was really fabulous because he enjoyed my story so much. And again, I felt like he was in it with me when I would be in the mic and trying to speak all those words, which is really hard, by the way.
Yes, yes, it is.
Very
I
hard.
listen to a lot of audiobooks, so I know how hard it is because
Yeah.
you know when it's good, and then when it falls a little bit flat. Like reading out loud is a skill.
Yeah. Remember in grade school when they said you go around the room and say, okay, little Johnny, it's your turn to read. And then you just get all choked up and you can't speak. And, everyone's watching you.
I hated that.
I
That was my
know.
that was the most frightening moment ever. And
Your
it wasn't
heart
until exactly, your heart's pounding. Even as an actress, we have first rehearsals. The first day of rehearsals, we read the play out loud. And it's terrifying. Everyone hates it because this is the first time that the actors have met each other. The cast is just kind of assessing, appraising one another, and you feel like you're auditioning all over again. It's terrible, even though you already have the job.
Yes.
But so in your process, did you write every day or did you schedule out certain times of day, parts of the week that you would write? How did that happen for you?
It was not structured like that at all. And let me just say that I did write many other drafts that weren't very good. It had all the factual content, but and people, I'd have a few people, victims read it. And especially my daughter said, it's good, but it sounds like a diary. And so I put it away again for a couple of years. And then I hired a writing coach. I forgot to say that part, Anne Heffron. And she was saying, you know, show more, don't tell more. And that was really instrumental in me trying to be more expressive about a situation and with the EMDR, I was able to go back there and get a sensation of what it felt like to be in that moment. And so I would say I just wrote from adrenaline. When I would have a thought, I'd have a notepad in the car and write down, I don't know, maybe it was a word that just struck me of, I need to include that. I need to somehow fit that in there. And so then the adrenaline was, I was so worried I was going to lose the thought that I'd immediately go to the typewriter, I get it down in there. And at one point, I lost my laptop to an incident that my cat decided to urinate on my laptop, and I lost the whole thing. But luckily, I had a hard copy and was able to reconstruct the edits that I'd done over the last couple of weeks. So I was able to get up and running again. But it's even in the book where I talk about that, of losing the laptop and what that meant to me. But there was really no real structure. I couldn't say that I sat down and said, you're going to write now. I went by feeling and momentum and content and emotion. I went by emotion.
Okay. It sounds very intuitive, which is how I like to write too. Like just writing down just sentences, words, as you said, that pop up, and then you fit them together later on.
Another good thing that worked for me is that I put on music that I was listening to at that, whatever the event that I talked about in the book, whatever was relevant to me at that time. Music's been a big influence in my life. And so if there was a particular song that brought up feelings and still does, then I'd play that. And then I'd remember something that, I need to include that. So that was really helpful. Pictures are helpful to look at that were from that time, and anything else you can think of to get you in the mood.
Yeah. That's such great feedback about, it sounded like a diary, because that's so specific. And then the fact that you weren't too precious with the writing, that you could pull back and take the constructive criticism and apply it. That is essential as a writer.
Hey, I want to share with you something that has changed my life. It's more like someone, my therapist. Why is she so important? Well, because I want to win in this life. I want to break through the carousel of stories I've compiled that hold me back, that keep me from expanding into my full potentiality. Stories of unworthiness, not enoughness, and even stories of questioning why I am here. I also want to stop dumping my unsorted feelings on the people around me and reacting with the same behavioral patterns that keep me stuck. Conversations with my therapist have made me more confident, clearer in my intention, and more centered in my spirit. That is why I am elated that we are sponsored by BetterHelp, where you can, from wherever you happen to be right now, match with a therapist tailored to your exact needs. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. Someone who you can text at any time and schedule online for either a chat, Zoom, or phone call. And if it turns out that your therapist isn't the right fit, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional cost. Visit the link in the show notes, betterhelp.com, when they were young, to get 10% off the first month. You need to click the link in the show notes in order to get the 10% discount. I want to see you win, beloved. Let's do it together. Visit the link, betterhelp.com, when they were young.
Yeah, I got, disappointed quite a few times, but it was inside me, whatever was it was. It was so strong that it said, come on, get back to it, write it. And I know we all have that. So I'm not saying mine's any bigger than someone else's, but it was the pandemic. There were a lot of things that converged right at the same time.
Yeah.
And I mean, very intentional.
How long did it take you to write it?
Less than a year.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But I'd been writing it all my life.
Yeah.
And had been practicing since the day that I would write to my parents, because I'd cry when they talked to me. I just couldn't form any words because they'd be yelling at me, and I'd just cry. So then I'd go in my room and I'd learn how to write to them, and I'd put it under their door. And I remember them after they would, remark about whatever it was I said, then they'd say, you know what, you're a pretty good writer. Yeah.
Wow. Deepak Chopra said that he wrote one of his books in one flight. I think he was flying over the Atlantic, and it just writing, I believe, is channeling in a lot of ways. You just open up the channel and it flows
like a portal. You just walk in and go, there it is.
Yeah. And you were ready to receive it, which was beautiful.
The swing that I told you about that's in the image of on the hill with the big old oak tree, and you've got the rope and wood-seated swing that's hanging from the tree's limb. I use that as the portal into, either a younger part of myself to converse with them, or sometimes I put them in the swing, but I use that as sort of a symbolic way of how we can suspend our thinking and go to a different reality, a different realm, and just see things, a perspective in a different way.
Wow. Earlier, you spoke to the rawness of your book. And I imagine there are some characters there that played a part in your life, and you had to retell the story. How was that, retelling their side of the story? And did you ask for permission? Did they read the book? Were there responses to that?
Are you talking about my younger parts? No.
Perhaps, but any kind of interaction that you had with other people, and you are then bringing them into this story. And right. I think that is a sticky point for a lot of adoptees as they retell their perspective, which is absolutely valid.
Well, I used a pseudonym of Emma Stevens.
Okay.
And I changed names and places and dates, so I didn't have any kind of worry of pushback. And I did that out of respect for my family. And I just felt like it was the way that I needed to proceed in order to have my voice and not wait till some people pass. I know a lot of authors wait until that moment, and I didn't want to wait. I was too impatient. So I did, and it gave me both worlds of where I could write my book, have my voice, but protect my family at the same time. Then on the other part of, I was going to tell you the gathering place where I've invited my younger parts to come. It was very important that I let them all know they were all welcome. There was no part of me that I was saying, oh, everyone's invited except for that part, because I don't like you. I don't like what you did or said, or, so all my parts were welcome, because they all made up me. They all make up me. Yeah. So hopefully I answered that question.
You did, and it was so beautifully put too, because that's something that a lot of adoptees will resonate with. All of their parts are welcome. And I know that growing up, I tried to shift and assimilate and chip off a lot of who I was in order to feel that artificial sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And so now I'm on a journey of reclaiming my voice, reclaiming my heritage, reclaiming my perspective, my narrative, whatever that is, and creating those boundaries in my life so that I can flourish, I can thrive in the way that I deserve to. And for us adoptees, it's, I don't want to say being given permission, but sometimes it is that because for so long we were told to be silent, to be indebted, to be grateful, to be all of these things that we did not feel were authentic to ourselves. So I love that you said, bring your full self, be authentic. And in finding that voice, I mean, was that a road for you? And you seem so confident now.
I had to learn that I always had the key, maybe not in my childhood, because, we're all really subject to our parents in our childhood. We don't have the ability to say, I'm going to be my true self, or at least I didn't, or else I would have hell to pay. But now I realize I have the key to set my own self free. And that took so much digging and clawing and trying to find clarity and reality to understand that I have choice now. I didn't have choice then, but I have the choice to be my true self now. And I've given my own self permission to step into that trueness and be unapologetic about it. I never could have boundaries I didn't even know what boundaries were, to tell you the truth. I couldn't have needs. I couldn't have boundaries. And now I hold a healthy boundary unapologetically. And it's a process, because first I learned how to set a boundary. Then I learned how to not back off that boundary when I got pushback. Well, like, what the hell do you mean you have a boundary? I don't like that boundary. And so now I'm able to say, well, I'm sorry you don't like that boundary, but it is for me, and it's going to hold steady. And I'm unapologetic about that.
Yeah.
So that's really tapping into things that were so foreign to me as a child. But it's where I'm headed now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. So is your book, is the audience adoptees, adoptive parents, all of the above, do you think?
I would say the adoptee constellation is what I like to refer to it. And I've even heard from a lot of non-adoptees how, even though they didn't have the exact same experience, they said it's very relatable. and that they have similar, they could view it through their own lens of their own life and what has happened to them, even though it's not exactly the same. So I thought, I took that as a real win that, yay, you get to help more than just an adoptee. You get to help anyone that's willing to listen to it and open up that part of themselves to look at themselves a little closer.
Yeah. And that's huge. I mean, that's more than we bargained for. So that's
Yeah.
that's great. Oftentimes adoptees have to become sleuths to unravel their past. How were you able to put the pieces of the puzzle together? And how did it feel when you realized the pieces were fitting and you were getting closer to the truths about your past?
Oh, that's a big question. So I will say, do you remember the Rubik's Cube in the 70s? It was developed a puzzle like a block, and it had different sides where you were supposed to try to get all the orange color on one side and all the blue on one side. Anyway, it was a very convoluted, frustrating puzzle. And in the book, I talk about how it's as if when I was a baby, I was given one of those Rubik Cube puzzles and said, here you go, figure it out.
Wow.
And so all my life, I've just been frustratingly trying to, let's see if this works. Let's, adapting, like you said, we're the adaptable adoptees. Let me change myself in this way and see if I'll be accepted that way. And it's just been a common theme throughout my life. I was in reunion, I'd say 35 years ago, that I found my biological parents. But that was not even, it was a necessary part of my journey, but it was not the end all. And I was still very much in the fog. It was a piece of the puzzle, but it wasn't the entire thing. It certainly helped. But as my life went on and I did different things in my life that I now see were very colored by adoption, all my choices, all of my, well, I was only married once, but it was definitely influenced by my adoptive lens. And it would not be what I choose now because now I'm aware. Now I have clarity. But the puzzle pieces I'm still looking for the remainder of the puzzle pieces. And I'm kind of excited about it because it's the journey. I'm excited to be on the journey and see what's next. And so that Rubik's Cube continues. But when I found, if you read the book, there's a very exciting part about finding my biologicals and how I felt as though I had that Rubik's Cube almost figured out.
Wow.
But yeah, I think there's a reason why adoptees talk about puzzle pieces quite a bit. It seems to be a common theme with us.
Oh, absolutely.
Sleuths and detectives and investigators, and it's very much part of my story.
And the puzzles are three-dimensional, as you said, and when they slide into place, I feel like for me, it started to slide into place in my adulthood because I went back to Haiti at 13 and reunified with my family. And I was still in the fog, so I was not equipped to process what was happening. I tried to have those hard conversations with my mom, my biological mom, of why did you give me up? And I was met with the cultural barrier of she not speaking English and me having a translator, as I'm sobbing. Did she get that?
Yeah.
Did she understand what I was trying to say? And then two, of just the misunderstanding from her end of what was going to happen. And that is the rub for a lot of these situations, because there are several stories being told to various people. And when you start to unravel this story, this past, you find that your parents were told one thing, your siblings were told another thing. you were told something and then your adoptive parents believed something completely different. Did you find that to be true for you as you started to really align the various parts of the cube?
Yeah, I was just thinking about my biological mother. I too went into meeting her with all these expectations and didn't have a clue of, I was 24. I didn't have a clue of what I was doing. I was just like, all, here I am. Hi, how are you doing? And I met her at a rehab center and didn't even understand what that meant. But as time went on, I understand now, looking back, she didn't know what to do with me. And she didn't know what expectations she had of me, what a relationship was. Did we want a relationship? And it came to be that we didn't. We didn't have a relationship. It went on for a couple of years and then it fizzled out because I feel that she was in a victim role and wanted to remain there. And she wanted me to be her mother. And I couldn't accept that role. And I didn't know that then, but I do know that now. So I was able to carry that. There were a lot of other reunions throughout the years with bio dad, and then more recently with paternal biological cousins that I've met. And I'm able to approach that in a different way than I did 35 years ago with my birth parents. So I've learned a lot along the way, but I think there should be, for adoptees, there should be some coaching.
Oh, absolutely.
Approach a reunion and to check your own expectations of what are you looking for? What's your objective? Because I think there's a lot of hurt feelings that happen. And a lot of us had that fantasy all throughout our lives of who they would be, the biologicals. Mine was that my birth mom should be Samantha from Bewitched, which was a 60s television show. Okay, well, she was not Samantha.
Yeah.
And once you meet who they really are, that fantasy is ruined forevermore.
Yeah. And it's the largest fantasy that you have in your life, right? Because it's tied to you and your identity. And when that ruptures, it is cataclysmic.
It's a grieving process again of what you didn't, what wasn't so, what didn't happen, and accepting your reality of who it is. I kept saying, no, this can't be possible. I must have the wrong person when I met her. She's passed now. She's passed. But I really had a hard time connecting. I know a lot of people say, oh, we look just alike. We acted alike. No, that wasn't true in my case. So then I had to reconcile. I'm not like my adoptive parents. I'm not like my biologicals. So then I had to just come and reconcile that I'm from my holy mystery. I'm from the universe. I'm me. I wrote a poem called I Am Me. And I had to let go of all those expectations of what I thought I should be or where I thought I came from. And that Rubik's Cube, I had to just throw it away because it wasn't really relevant.
I love that, the holy me, because I did not see myself in my biological mother either. And I felt more of a kinship to my cousins and my siblings. I think because the expectations are lower on both ends, and you still are pliable. You're still malleable enough to accept one another where you are. But I think that the parents have like deep expectations, and then the kids have deep expectations, and they're sometimes insurmountable. And I have an estranged relationship with my biological mother, who I'm hoping to go visit in Boston this summer. But again, it's going to be awkward. it's never going to be me, snuggled up at her bosom and eating the cookies that she made me. Like, it's never going to be that. And I made peace with that long ago.
Lenise, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you happen to look at others around you, females, and look for mothering, nurturing instincts and get mothered from them in a certain way? Are you still in a certain way looking for someone to mother you?
I wouldn't say mother me. I would say father me, because I grew up without a father. My adoptive mom raised me without being married, and I was raised by women. And so I am a very nurturing person. I'm maternal and instinct, all of that. So I have been just smothered with that, you know? But I find that the people that I date, the energy that I seek in friendships have to be protecting. I have to feel safe. I have to feel that they are committed, and those are all very masculine traits.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to watch myself, because I do like hyper masculine men, and I like them to tell me what to do, which is so weird because I'm a feminist, and I have been told that I have strong masculine energy, but I do know that I have a father complex, and I have to watch myself.
Yeah, the dynamics are very interesting for adoptees of the different things that, things that are driving our bus that we may not be aware of, and the choices that we make. And I think that's another reason why to be so intentional and try to keep aware of, okay, why am I making that choice? Be curious about your life. I think it's really helpful.
It is helpful.
Choosing the people you choose. I choose so differently now than what I used to. I used to choose the person with the biggest spark, that was just the most electrifying. And I don't necessarily do that anymore. Now I like to find more of a balance of someone that's safe, loyal, all those good quality, solid traits. And I'm a little less attracted to the flash than I used to be.
That's good. I'm working towards that.
It feels more honest and authentic.
It is.
And has more longevity.
I was just going to say it's way more sustainable that way.
Yeah.
And so I can appreciate that. And I have to continue my healing and my learning and my investigation and my curiosity, so that I don't fall into those traps that adoptees get into with relationships. And it is going to be a continued awareness and journey.
And I think the more that we develop that, it's almost like eating junk food. Once you stop eating junk food, you really don't want it anymore. Once you've been more, eating the healthy flavors and the richness and the fullness of those flavors, and it keeps you, healthier, and you don't really want the junk food.
Oh, absolutely. Once you identify what is fuel, you say, oh, no, my body needs fuel. It's not just about food. It's about sustenance. It's about nourishment. And that's what I seek. And then you're right. You begin to be able to tell the difference between how your body feels when you have an apple or when you have a whole bag of Doritos.
Yeah. And those parallels with relationships it's the same thing. You just don't choose the same way that you used to as you develop that muscle of discernment, the discernment of what's good for me. That's my objective.
Yeah. So I in the past, I've asked the question to all of my guests, where can they apply courage? But I'm amending that a little bit. And I'm now asking, how are you courageous?
Stepping out there. And I heard this podcast recently. Someone I follow, his name's Rob Bell, and he has a podcast called The Robcast. He's a inspirational speaker, former pastor, walked away from like a mega church. And, he's kind of, by others, he may be considered edgy now. That's why I like him. But he talks about Are you able to trust yourself now and quote yourself instead of always quoting some other person? And that just really hit home for me. In my book, I use a quote that is meaningful to me in each of the chapters. It starts each chapter, and it's, things from Rob Bell, Richard Rohr, Brene Brown. It goes on. But what I'm trying to say is that I'm going to trust myself enough now these days that I'm ready to teach. I'm ready to trust my own words, and I'm ready to stand there and say, here I am. Life wanted life, and I'm here, and I am going to take some space up, and I'm going to use my voice. So I guess that's what my answer to you is that I'm going to start quoting myself from now on. Not always, but sometimes.
That's so good. That's so good, Emma. Because I fall into that trap too, because I, especially on Instagram, I'm like, I'm going to repost. I'm not going to coin anything today, but
those
that's great.
Those are great too, but we shouldn't always, if your motivation is to always be behind someone else, it's time to step to the forefront and hear your own voice, because it's valid.
Yeah, it is. It is. So where can people learn more about you and connect with you?
I'm on all the socials. It's usually at Emma Stevens, The Gathering Place. That would be Facebook and Instagram. And then on Twitter and TikTok, it's at Emma Stevens TGP.
We'll include it in the show notes, but that's
Okay.
great. You're everywhere, so they can reach you wherever they happen to be. That's great.
Right. And The Gathering Place is on Amazon for sale, and Kindle and Audible. You'll be able to find it there too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Emma, for joining me today. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Another beautiful episode. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to my guest today. If you liked this episode, the best way to support me and this work is to write an iTunes review, a 5-star review. This helps us reach the top of searches and helps more people to find us. And if you personally want to connect, please reach out on Instagram or Facebook. And I have some great resource material on my website at laniceantoineshelley.com. So go on over there too. Until next we meet, go gently and have courage, my love.